Hello and welcome to Unit 6, and now we've moved on to sexual reproduction, day 1. So today's aim is, how does sexual reproduction work? And we're just starting out with sexual reproduction. So our do now questions are still talking about asexual reproduction. So these both come directly from yesterday's assignment. So pause this video for a moment and go ahead and try to answer those questions. Ooh, hopefully you just pause the video and answer these questions on your own, but let's go ahead and answer them together. So how are mitosis and cancer related? Well, mitosis is cell division. And cancer is kind of like an error in mitosis because it is uncontrolled cell division. So mitosis isn't just happening willy-nilly, right? It's replacing cells that need to be replaced. But when cancer occurs in a cell, that means that the mechanism that controls the replication of the cell is somehow broken, usually due to a mutation that may be caused by environmental factors or genetics. So speaking of environmental factors that cause cancer, what environmental factors might cause cancer? So you could have listed several things, but let's go with radiation, pollution, and smoking. And radiation includes not only like the stuff that comes out of your microwave, but UV radiation, which is the most common cause of skin cancer. And what do they cause in the DNA of an organism? They cause mutations. And those mutations lead to some sort of an error in the construction of a new cell. Sometimes it is, and this isn't something that you'd be asked about, but a very common error, a mutation error that leads to cancer, impacts TNF, which is something kind of crazy that all of our cells are producing right now, which stands for tumor necrotizing factor. So all of your cells all of the time have this enzyme that is a tumor necrotizing factor that prevents mutations that lead to mitosis, that prevents uncontrolled cell division. So if a mutation occurs that impacts that TNF, that makes that enzyme no longer be produced, and mutations impact the instructions for building proteins. And as you hopefully remember, enzymes are proteins. If that TNF doesn't work, all of a sudden there's nothing necrotizing, nothing killing the tumors, and they can grow out of control, and that's how you get cancer. So try to, stay away from environmental pollution if you can, but sometimes you can't. But one thing that's easy to stay away from is smoking. Don't smoke, kids, including the vape. All right, so off my soapbox, let's go on to part A, sexual reproduction. It takes two. So we're going to read this short passage, and I'm going to underline and highlight, and then the answers below are going to come directly from this passage. So sexual reproduction, it takes two. For almost all animals, it takes two individuals to produce offspring, a male and a female. This is called sexual reproduction. Two individuals, so contrasted from asexual reproduction where there's only one parent. Most plants use this method of reproduction to make more of their own kind too. Sexual reproduction is very important in understanding the behavior and diversity of living things. It also plays a significant role in the process of evolution. To understand why this is, we must look at the reproductive cells and study the chromosomes within them. So what is sexual reproduction? It is reproduction between a male and a female. So two parents. And male and female, obviously speaking strictly biologically, because we're in biology class. Does sexual reproduction play an important role in understanding the process of evolution? What does it allow us to comprehend? Behavior and genetic diversity. And we're going to talk a lot more about evolution in Unit 8 about evolution, but behavior and the actual genes in our bodies significantly impact evolution. Evolution is driven by changes, environmental factors, and any given organism's ability to survive and reproduce. And what traits get passed on are largely impacted by behavior and environmental factors, and what traits exist are impacted by genetic diversity. So this is really the name of the game when we're talking about evolution. And you may already be thinking genetic diversity, we talked about this, but variation. And when we discuss the mechanism of meiosis, you'll see why meiosis really assists in the genetic variation that is already inherent to sexual reproduction when there's two parents involved. But the process that produces gametes also increases genetic variation. Wow, sexual reproduction, it's pretty cool. So part B, it's all about chromosomes, baby. So each of our cells contains chromosomes. The chromosomes contain the inherited information that has been passed along since the beginning of life on Earth. It is this information that determines an individual's characteristics. The chromosomes also contain the know-how that keeps our cells functioning correctly. So our chromosomes contain our DNA, and our DNA are the instructions for life. Not just the instructions for like how to live as an organism, but the instructions for how to build new cells, for how to continue on as a living organism. Why is sexual reproduction all about chromosomes? When a sperm cell and an egg cell unite during sexual reproduction, it is the nucleus from each cell that joins. And what does the nucleus contain? It contains the chromosomes. So sexual reproduction is about combining chromosomes from two individuals. Each body cell contains 46 chromosomes. The first cell from changing colors. The first cell from which each one of us came, the cell that resulted from the combination of a sperm cell and an egg cell, had 46 chromosomes. Every body cell in you now still has 46 chromosomes. So that is not in every type of organism, but this is in humans. So humans, we have 46 chromosomes in our body cells, in all of our body cells. But how did a sperm and an egg cell combine to make a new cell with 46 chromosomes? There is only one way. Both the sperm and egg cell must have had only 23 chromosomes each, half the amount of chromosomes from the normal number of 46. A special type of cell division produces sperm and egg cells, each with the reduced number of chromosomes. And that is meiosis, which we are soon to talk about. So, why do sperm and egg cells only have 23 chromosomes? Because this is half the number needed to produce a complete and the sperm and egg must combine. So if, let's say, the sperm cell had 26 chromosomes and the egg cell had 23 chromosomes, Well, that sperm cell is not going to produce viable offspring. If that sperm cell with 26 chromosomes was able to fertilize the normal 23 chromosome egg cell, the resulting zygote would likely not be viable, meaning it would not survive. So this is where a lot of errors in human reproduction occur, is at the chromosome division level. So if you've ever heard of conditions like triploidy or even Down syndrome, these are errors in chromosome replication. And some errors in chromosome replication, like for example, the one that causes Down syndrome on trisomy 23, I think. Again, that's not really in our purview, but you may have heard of Down syndrome. Down syndrome results from an error in this process in chromosome replication. But for the most part, if there's an error in either chromosome division in producing gametes or an error in chromosome replication once the zygote has been formed, typically the organism, whether a human or some other animal, is just never, it's not born. It's not viable. It can't survive. So chromosomes, they're very important. Without the correct instructions, you can't live your life. So sperm and egg must combine to produce a new organism, or the zygote, which is the product of fertilization. There's also another word that I'm just going to introduce here that we'll define more later, but sperm and egg cells, gametes, are haploid. And hap sounds like half. They have half the genetic information that diploid body cells have. And diploid and I'm gonna actually write diploid up here next to the passage talking about diploid cells. Diploid cells, di means two, right? So diploid cells have a full copy. They have information coming from both gametes that combined, the two combined to form the diploid, versus the gametes that only have half the genetic information from the parent are haploid. And again, we will talk about those terms more specifically later, but I'm just introducing them here because they're related. All right, now part C, talking more about these haploid cells, gametes. And go ahead and pronounce this one with me because it's a hard word to say. Gametes. Gams, like they called legs in the old-timey 20s, old-timey videos, gams, eats, like food, right? Gametes, and these are sperm and egg cells. You can also call gametes sex cells. So the sperm and egg cells, or sex cells, are also called gametes. In the process of sexual reproduction, the nuclei of the gametes join together. The fusion of this nuclei, or of these nuclei, is called fertilization. The resulting cell, a fertilized egg cell, is called a zygote. Each gamete has the normal number of chromosomes. Only has the normal number of chromosomes. The zygote and the body cells that come from mitotic division of the zygote have two sets of chromosomes in them, one from each parent, forming the new organism. So each gamete is haploid, each gamete. So sperm and egg cell. Haploid. And in the case of humans, 23 chromosomes. When they combine, they produce somatic cells, or body cells. And body cells are diploid. And you can see there are twice the number of chromosomes, so 23 times 2. They have 46 chromosomes. And body cells look similar to egg cells when you draw them out, especially if you draw them in the same color. But the difference lies in the nucleus, where the somatic cell has a complete copy of the genetic information in the new organism in this case. And the somatic cell that we all stem from is the zygote, which is the initial fertilized egg that contains the fused nuclei of the parent sperm and egg cells. Pretty cool stuff. And we're going to talk about this in a lot more detail coming up throughout this topic. But what is a gamete? A gamete is a sex cell. And what is a zygote? A zygote is a fertilized egg cell containing, and because it's fertilized, that means it's not just an egg anymore. It is the sperm and egg joined together. Fertilized egg cell containing full copy of genes. So a zygote is a somatic cell. A zygote has 46 chromosomes, or a human zygote does anyway. So, all right, go ahead and do your exit ticket. This was sexual reproduction day 1. Today's aim was, how does sexual reproduction work? And we discussed that a little bit by going over the fact that sexual reproduction involves 2 parents. It is very important to evolution because it impacts variation and behavior. We talked about chromosome replication. We briefly discussed gametes and what the difference between haploid and diploid cells is. So that's all I have for you today, guys. Have a super fantastic day, and I'll see you all next week on Zoom. Bye, guys.